All right, so in this video, we're going to look at water. And water, and we're not really going to do the acid, bases, and buffer part of this packet. We're just going to do the water part because water is super important. Remember that water is really just an oxygen and two hydrogens, okay? And because of that, and they're forming covalent bonds. This is a covalent bond in between the oxygen and the hydrogen. So water is polar. It forms those polar covalent bonds, okay? So it's a little bit negative over here and a little bit positive and a little bit positive over here, okay? And we could draw water this way, like a little Mickey Mouse. So it's negative, positive, positive, okay? So because of these things, water can have 4 hydrogen bonds. Water can form 4 hydrogen bonds or H bonds, okay? And that's obviously with other water molecules. So let's look, here's this one water molecule, here's its oxygen and its 2 hydrogens, and it forms 4 different hydrogen bonds. One with this one using its hydrogen, one with this one using its hydrogen and this oxygen. This is where it gets a little tricky. It can actually form 2 using its oxygen. That oxygen is really that negative that it can form one from this hydrogen to this oxygen and one from this hydrogen to this oxygen. So it can form 4 total hydrogen bonds, each water molecule. So if you have a whole beaker of water molecules, you're forming there's lots of hydrogen bonds, and because of those hydrogen bonds, water has all kinds of cool properties that normal covalently bonded things like carbon dioxide, for example, does not do, okay? And so let's look at some of the things that some of the properties of water. We're going to explore these in lab. The first one is that water is what we call cohesive. It's supposed to cohesive. This is okay. And so cohesion, let's define what that term means, is hydrogen bonds. It's because of the hydrogen bonds between water molecules. So water molecules tend to stick together. They like each other. That's why it's easy to pour water out of a glass. Okay? Now, the importance of this is there's actually a few things that makes this important. In terms of life, when we talk about this importance, it's in terms of life. You can do things like transport water up a phloem against gravity because water sticks to itself. So it's like how it stays in the straw or things like that in plants. Okay. You also might have, water also has what we call a higher surface tension. And so the little water bugs can sit on the surface of the water because it has a higher surface tension. So those are called water striders, those water bugs. Okay. A second property of water is that water has what we call a high specific heat. Okay. Basically, what a specific heat means is it means it takes a lot of energy to raise 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. Okay? And the reason why it does this, if you want to ask yourself why, it's our friend the hydrogen bonds. You got to break all those hydrogen bonds first. Get those molecules moving, okay? And so what the deal is that liquid water can absorb a lot of heat. So liquid H2O can absorb large amounts of heat with small changes in temperature. This is very convenient because the ocean can act like a cushion and absorb a lot of the heat. So the importance of this is that lakes and oceans, one, they stay cool, but they also help regulate the atmospheric temperature. Okay. Another property of water, a third property of water, is that water has a high, what's called heat of vaporization. Now, if you just break this down, what does vapor mean? It means turning from a liquid into a gas, and so it has a high, it takes a lot of heat to turn it from a liquid into a gas, to vaporize it, okay? So that's exactly what we're going to write. Takes a lot of energy, and if you've ever had to boil water before, you know how it takes a lot of energy to convert liquid H2O into vapor. Okay, so the reason why it does this is, again, guess what you have to do? You have to break all those hydrogen bonds. Let's break hydrogen bonds. The general answer with this stuff, with water and anything, is just hydrogen bonds. Okay, so it keeps water in a liquid state. It also, there's a lot of importance. So it helps with your sweat. That's actually, because it takes a lot of energy to convert it, it actually helps you keep, it's called evaporative cooling. It keeps you cool. Water is present on planet Earth because liquid water, because of this property. And it's not all vaporized. Okay. The fourth property of water, this is a good one, and some of you might know this. Water expands when it freezes. If you've ever put a water bottle into the freezer for a few hours, it will puff up, okay? And the reason why this happens is solid water is less dense than liquid water, okay? And the reason why it's less dense, so why is it less dense, is because in the solid state, water is locked, because it's so cold, into hydrogen bonds, which actually take up more space. So there's more space in between the molecules, so it makes the ice less dense. And here's the importance of this whole thing, is that ice floats. Now some of you are like, okay, I know that ice floats, who cares? Well, you care if you're a fish and you live in a lake that freezes in the wintertime, because you can live in the liquid water underneath and the ice can sit on top and you will not freeze. Okay, that's why that's important. And then the last one is water is a versatile solvent. Sometimes in chemistry they say that it is the universal solvent. It dissolves a lot of things. There's only a few things it won't dissolve, okay? Because it will dissolve polar covalent molecules, which there's a lot of them, and ionic compounds. The only thing it won't dissolve is non-polar covalent compounds. Okay. So, and the importance of this is, think about our oceans. There's all kinds of things like oxygen, salts, nitrogen, phosphorus, all those things that the animals need to live, or organisms need to live. So, and this is also true in our bodies. You can transport a lot of things around in your bloodstream because they're dissolved in the water. Our oceans are also important. So that's kind of all the important stuff of water, what water's all about.